Hello, everybody. My name is David Carney. I'm the Executive Director of the Career Industry Council of Australia. Welcome to our event today, the fourth webinar in our Empowering Futures series. So thank you if you are joining us for either your first webinar as part of the series, or you've managed to be to all four, or you've come to a couple of them. It's great to have you back as part of this series. Just before we get underway today, I would just like to make an acknowledgement of country. So the Career Industry Council of Australia would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. I'd like to acknowledge that today I'm hosting this session on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples who are joining us today. Just a little bit of quick housekeeping, just to let you know this session is being recorded. If you do experience any technical issues over the course of the 1 hour, please, in the first instance, just try to refresh your screen. If that doesn't work, you can use the link that you've been provided to come back into the session. We do have the chat function open today, which I can see some of you are using, which is fantastic. As always, we will ask our presenter today, Nancy. She'll need to keep her eye on the chat. So if you have any specific questions for Nancy that you would like to direct to her about her presentation, we would ask you please to put those into the Q&A button, which just allows for ease of facilitation as we get to that point at the end of today's session. As I said, this has been a month of free webinars that CICC has provided as part of our commitment to ensuring the quality of the profession. We move into our international webinar series kicking off next month through March, the 5th and the 12th. The 5th of March is an annual update for us about current and future state of the Australian labour market, which is provided by Jobs and Skills Australia. That's on the 5th. And then we welcome for the first time from the International Monetary Fund our presenter who's going to be talking about generative AI, artificial intelligence and the future of work. If you're interested in either of those two presentations, please feel free to visit our website, click on the events tab, and it will take you through to the relevant links. So enough of the housekeeping. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Nancy Arthur back to our webinar series. Nancy has presented for us on a number of occasions, so it's great to have Nancy back. For those of you who don't know Nancy, Nancy is a professor and Dean Research in UniSA Business at the University of South Australia, and she's also Professor Emerita at the University of Calgary in Canada, where she was awarded a Canadian Research Chair in Professional Education for Diversity and Social Justice. Nancy's recent research in career development focuses on culture-infused career counselling and the transition experiences of international students and migrants. And Nancy is also one of the co-editors of two great books that we use in our profession that were funded by CICC, and that's the Career Theories and Models at Work, Ideas for Practice, and also the Practice Principles, Career Theories and Models at Work. So Nancy, welcome back to the series. I'm going to stop my screen and pass over to you.
Terrific. Well, hello everyone, and thank you, David, for such a lovely introduction. I want to say hello to colleagues from all parts of Australia who are joining us, and colleagues who might be joining us from other countries today, or taking the time to view this webinar later. I'm just going to share my screen so we can, and that's not what I want to share. Let's go this way. Okay, let's go here. There, is that showing everyone? I'm assuming yes. Okay.
No, not yet. Not yet, Nancy. We can see you.
Okay, all right. Let's try. I will try that again. I can see that on my screen, but it's not showing for you. So let me just take a minute before we get going. So what I'm seeing, David, is the okay, let's try that again. Let's go. Okay. Is that showing on the screen yet?
No.
All right. Okay.
I should have let you keep your slides up, Nancy.
We had this all figured out before it started, so sorry for this delay. Let's try one more time. I'm hoping that's it.
I think it's up.
Yay. Okay. That's a much better start than the one we just had. So thanks everyone for your patience. I think working from different offices and different screens has tripped me up today. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. I'm so excited to be part of this webinar series. Before I begin my presentation, I also want to acknowledge and pay respect to the Kaurna people and their elders, past and present, who are the traditional owners of the land in the city named Adelaide in South Australia. That's where I'm joining you from today. But I also want to acknowledge the other First Nations of lands across Australia's and First Nations people and other countries, and also Indigenous peoples, their elders, ancestors, cultures, and heritage. So it was really interesting to be invited to present a webinar and a series about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I will apologize in advance because of my Canadian roots. I sometimes say EDI versus DEI, and it's just the order of the terms and how they've been used. So what I'd like to talk about today in my presentation is, first of all, be strong. And I would never have imagined opening up a session with those words, be strong. But I just want to say right away how alarming it is to hear narratives across countries and parts of the world that are actually anti-inclusive, anti-diversity, anti-equity. And I think that we need to be willing to hear those narratives and actually contest them through our actions. So when I say be strong, I want to really emphasize how we can enhance our practice and keep what are important values to the work that we do as career development practitioners. So today I'd like to share some ideas about how you can integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies into your practice context. I'm not going to say exactly how to do that, but I'm going to highlight areas that I hope will help you to develop strategies that are relevant for you. I'm going to provide some evidence around why DEI works. What are the positive benefits? Now, my work, I'm not a DEI researcher per se, but my work in developing the culture-infused career counseling models incorporates many of the concepts and practices that we'll be talking about today. So this session is all about helping you think about what are the strategies that you want to develop or enhance in your practice context. I have a few polls because it's really important that we hear your ideas, because during these webinars, we always have a wealth of experience from our participants. So that's what the agenda looks like. Here we go. All right. Now, one of the first things that I want to mention is not everybody uses terminology in the same way. And I actually think it's quite useful if we ask our college and challenge our college to just say, what do you mean when you talk about diversity? When you talk about people who are diverse, who do you mean? Is it a who or is it a what? So I quite like this graphic because it emphasizes the plurality of people, but also the plurality of their perspectives. In other words, there's not just one perspective that's right or better, but we live in a world where the multiplicity of perspectives brings better outcomes on a lot of different ways. The principle of equity is something that when I've talked to people about it, they'll say, well, I treat everybody how I would like to be treated. Well, sometimes that isn't always the way that everyone wants to be treated. underlying that, I think, are people's ideas about respect, fairness, and trying to treat other people well. It's just that not everybody starts at the same place. Not everybody comes from the same background. And when we think about equity in policy, practice, and position, we have to recognize that customized practice helps us to really identify and address the needs and unique needs of people and groups. Inclusion is very important. We can have the best policies on diversity and equity, but inclusion is more about a sense of belonging. And that comes from feeling like people can be themselves, use their strengths, work and engage in communities that give them voice, position, and they can present who they are, a full picture of who they are, without threat and with support. Now, I can't help talk about these concepts without connecting them to social justice and injustice. The problem is that over time, we have had persistent issues with inequities, people not having the same resources, not having the same rights or opportunities in education or in employment. So diversity, equity, inclusion are strongly related to the concept of social justice. So that's our orientation. I think it helps just to have some really clear, straightforward ideas around these concepts as you talk about them with other career development practitioners and with leaders in organizations, with policymakers too. All right. So what's the problem? Now, we could spend a long time identifying barriers, and too often DEI presentations focus on the barriers, all of the problems. Here's what they are. Like the overarching idea is that not everybody has the same access and the same mobility and the same working conditions in education and employment. And we have to understand what leads to that and what are the solutions. So I just did a quick word cloud here of what are some of the common issues that are related to equity, diversity, inclusion, related to people's career development. And lack of representation or over-representation, where some people and groups are over or underrepresented in some occupational sectors. And that's gendered, it's racialized, and where you have different working conditions and also salary payments. Because of that diversification, you see inequities. There's everything from funding disparities, unfortunately, lots of continuing issues around forms of oppression, such as discrimination, workplace harassment, wage gaps, like the list goes on, okay? So I want you to think about these ideas that are relevant for you and your practice setting and which ones are important to you. This is not a complete list, but I want to ask you, why does DEI matter for your career development practice? What issues? So I'm going to invite you to go to Mentimeter, please. The website is listed at the top of the slide, menti.com. You can do that from your phone or your tablet, and then it'll ask you for a code. We're going to have several questions, several polls during this presentation. If you insert the code 89004997, you should see the questions that pop up from this presentation. Now, as you answer them on your phone or tablet, then the responses will show on the screen. The bigger the bubble, that means more people had the same idea. So it just might take a minute a minute or two for things to, yeah, I see them now. Well, I see some things coming up now. So why is this important? Why does it matter for your career development practice? Well-being of practitioners or clients. Building resilience, inclusion, helping people navigate roadblocks, opening opportunities, modeling different things in practice, people using their strengths or talents, cohorts of clients who face the same issues. This is a good point, because sometimes we can try to address issues that affect many people, and that's a more effective way than dealing one-on-one all the time with the same clients. Okay. Creating opportunities, student demographics, who's accessing education, who's graduating, how are they entering employment systems, retention in the workforce. Yeah, okay. Developing personalized supports. I'm just picking a few here. These are fantastic ideas. David, I'll circulate these results of the poll back to you if you want to feature them as well.
That'd be great, Nancy. We can send those out with the recording.
That'd be good. Thank you. All right. Thanks for those ideas. And a few more will come up, but I mean, I see many of the issues that you've identified. I love it that it aligns with values, your values, the values of your clients, reducing bias. And I think this is just a great expression, giving people a fair go. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Now I'm going to keep you on a poll. It's just easier to go to a second one. Terrific ideas there. What do you see? What do you consider to be the benefits of DEI-informed career development practice? So what do you think are the benefits of integrating DEI concepts and practices in the work that you do in your concept, in your context? So terrific ideas coming in here. I see, the center ones where multiple people have said better outcomes, getting better outcomes for client. That's terrific. Raising confidence, and that can be our own confidence as practitioners or the confidence of the clients we serve. Fairness, connecting to social justice, building access. There's macro level benefits of things going around, fit for purpose, customized practice, building psychological safety. These are terrific ideas. Equal opportunities, economic benefits, overcoming bias. All right, okay. Thanks, everyone. These are terrific. So I've raised the two questions, and I'd like you to think about what you posted and what you see from the postings of other people as we work through some of the material in the webinar today. All right, thanks, everyone. We'll come back to some other polls in just a moment. Okay, what I'm going to present now are some of the things that evidence tells us around, evidence tells us what makes a difference for, what makes a difference. Why does it make a difference on different levels? For individuals, addressing diversity, equity, inclusion means that we open up career opportunities for individuals. In the workplace, people experience greater job satisfaction. We're able to help them connect with various professional networks. It's important for skill development. One of the key things I'm really aware of are wage gaps, that a focus on equity can mean that we can actually improve the salary, compensation, and negotiation skills for compensation. Many diversity programs in organizations have focused on attraction of employees, but retention means keeping them, and that relates to improved workplace policies and conditions. Health outcomes are important, not only physical health, but also improving the psychological outcomes, because where individuals feel like they are safe and supported, they actually have improved mental health outcomes and physical health outcomes. One of the things that people kind of have said to me, well, why are we doing this for a select few? And that's might be we're changing a policy or practice. Indeed, the evidence shows that when we put policies in that are accommodating of some of the needs of some subgroups and groups at work, those policies actually benefit everyone. So I just think that's an important point. So we want to try to keep from positioning people as others or outside, but appreciating how people might come forward and express their needs, and we can consider how do those needs actually improve workplace conditions and outcomes for more people. Now, I want to move to the next level, and here's where we think about what are the benefits to organizations and society. They're connected. Workplace teams, research has time and time again shown the benefit of diversity of perspectives on workplace teams. And it's not just bringing people to the workplace. It is creating a safe environment where people feel like they can express themselves fully. There's an improvement in creativity, problem solving, and outcomes, providing solutions to workplace issues and products. There's an improvement in productivity if people feel more engaged. Leadership matters because where leaders show that they are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, other people take their cues from those when it's taken seriously in policies, actions, and evaluations. Organizations need to be concerned about their reputation. And words quickly spreads about which sectors or which organizations are more responsive to people than others. Clearly, we see the link to economic growth. As organizations are more productive, they become more profitable. So DEI actually works. We've got a business case from the economic and business side that we can make. All right. So what are the benefits to you? What are the benefits for career development practitioners? You've been focused on clients, you've been focused on organizations, but as your word cloud suggests, taking an EDI perspective and building strategies into your practice leads to better client support and relevant support and better outcomes. It helps us to think about which professional networks are going to support our practice. We can build and add on to our expertise. We might also increase clientele, because if we're seen as organizations and practices that meet community needs. Funding models often require now equity, diversity, inclusion statements as eligibility for funding. And just like I said for organizations, practices and individual practitioners have a reputation. Word travels, and the best thing we can have is word of mouth that says, I went to see someone within that organization, and they were really not only just friendly, but they were very supportive and recognized my, uniqueness. We can be involved in organizational change and systems change, so we can make a difference. And I've just met so many career practitioners who are keen to make a positive difference for the people they serve. And so we can use our knowledge resources to make those changes, as someone posted, to try to address some of the barriers and concerns that affect a number of people, and working at different levels to try to make a change so that not everybody has to continue to experience those issues. So there are a lot of benefits highlighted. So what can you do? What can you do to enhance your practice? So many of you I know are doing these things already. In surveys of Canadian practitioners and Australian practitioners, we asked people, what do you mean by certain concepts such as social justice, and how do you practice that? And people may not have called their practice that ways, but when we looked at the actual actions in their practice, it was obvious people were infusing or connecting equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice to their practice. All right, I've posted this idea: the professional is political. The professional is political. Often you might see the person is political, but I've written it as the professional is political. And I want you to just hang on to that idea. So what that means is that we can we have to recognize where there are problems and issues that affect people. And this is a call for us to use our professional knowledge and skills to make changes, to be parts of solutions. And if we look at the ethical codes and professional standards of organizations, it's not named this way, but it is explained in related ways, that we have an ethical mandate in our work to try to address inequities for our clients, to try to promote organizational change. So what I'd like to do is suggest some areas that you might decide to focus on for strategy development. So I'd like you to think about, at the end of the webinar today, where do you want to go with your commitments? What are the things you might still be doing that you want to keep on doing that connect to equity, diversity, inclusion? Or are there new areas that you would like to make a professional commitment? So I'm going to share some ideas related to your practice, individual practice with clients, organizational change, interprofessional collaboration, and working with and through professional associations. Okay, before we do that, let's have a moment to just take a poll. What is your current confidence level? What's your current confidence level about using your knowledge and practice of diversity, equity, inclusion strategies? So can you go to Mentimeter, please? And you can rate this everything from low to high, okay? So what is your confidence about knowledge and practice related to DEI strategies? Working directly with clients, making change within organizations. It looks like the N fell off, into professional collaboration, or working with or through professional associations. Where are you now? All right, so those are taking shape, and there's, there's pretty similar answers here around how you've ranked your confidence for working directly with clients, through engaging with other professionals and working with it through professional associations. A little bit of drop in the rankings here around creating organizational change. Okay, so as I present the upcoming slides, just think about which ones might help to enhance your practice, what you're currently doing, or new things that you might want to incorporate. Thank you for those. All right, so the work that I'm going to present follows from a model of culture-infused career counseling that I've developed. And so within that model, I've taken a look at working in kind of 4 domains, but they're all connected. So one of the things I want to talk about is the concept of identities and how that relates to our work on equity, diversity, inclusion. Our own identities as practitioners, as well as the identities of our clients, how to strengthen the working alliance. That's the work we do directly with clients on their goals and their processes, and also our commitment to social justice advocacy. So these slides are informed by work from that particular model. So I want to start off just talking a little bit about identities and social location. So who are you? Like, we don't walk around saying my identity is, or we often don't ask people directly what identity, what is your identity? Rather, we make kind of assumptions about people's identities identities are, and we don't have just one identity, we have multiple identities, and that shift across contexts or how we're treated by other people, and those can change over time. So, I mean, I'm here as in my identity as a professor and career development practitioner today. Other times, my identity as a gendered person, as a white woman, might be taken up or give me more or less privilege. So across situations, our identities evolve. Now, we might have ideas about our identity or identities that we'd like to show and prioritize in the workplace or in relationships, but sometimes our identities are overly defined by other people, and one aspect is picked out. So you might think of a time, and I can think of times during my career where my newness to a position, the fact I'm not from this country, or that I'm of a certain age or something, it's like a magnification of that aspect of my identity by other people. So the problem here is we need to think about how certain identities are valued over others. Our social location refers to what kinds of power and privilege are given to people because of the identities that are assigned to them. And here's where social processes such as discrimination, such as racialization, such as economic oppression, such as a hierarchy of identities, how we've pushed certain people away from the mainstream because of who they love or because of their religious practices. So the picture at the right is meant to show how sometimes we're painted in a certain way or treated a certain way because of one aspect of who we are. The color wheel at the bottom is meant to represent the plurality of our identities and how we shift our use of our identities or representation. The problem becomes when people feel like they have to go through the world quite restricting their identities. Imagine going to work and not feeling like you can show who you are as a person because of fear, because of no one listening, because of people not wanting your opinion, or knowing that the people whose voices are heard are of a different identity than what is assumed about your own. So with that little background around identities, I'm going to start with practitioner identities. Oftentimes models of counseling, models of career practice start with other people. I like to start with practitioner identities and encourage you to be reflective about your socialization, the values and beliefs, your worldview, and your views around career development, your own experience of career development, and to try to, over time, check your biases and assumptions. We all have them. And this is known often as unconscious bias, where it's only where we might be trying to practice out of good intentions or not realize statements. I'm really grateful to the colleagues and the clients who have pointed out to me, that phrase or how your actions really did just the opposite of what you intended. So I've had that as recent as this week, a colleague saying, you didn't give that person a fair go in a conversation. So that was really helpful for me. And I only, we don't notice often our actions until sometimes a trusted ally or friend points it out. Sometimes our personal experiences of equity, diversity, and inclusion can highly influence how we go about our practice. So this is a call for self-awareness as a fundamental way of encouraging our approach to equity, diversity, and inclusion in our practice. So, here's some kinds of reflection questions that I have written, published in a few places, just to get career practitioners thinking about how oppression or privilege has touched their life. How do you react to contrasting points of view? How were your views around jobs, careers, success shaped? Or when someone is pursuing a particular career pathway, where does that come from, and how do you react to that from your own value system? I'm happy to share some additional resources at the end where these types of reflection questions might be useful. I'd also like you to think about the career theories and models that you use in your practice, and ask the question, how inclusive is the theory and model that you use? Because they're developed in a certain time by certain people, tested on certain populations or not. So be a critical consumer, because some of the values that did underpin and continue to underpin some theories and values just don't resonate with people. And I've listed some of the values that we found. Mary McMahon and I asked career theorists in an Edge book we published in 2019 to write a section in their chapters specifically about cultural applications of their theories, because often it's just a byline in a chapter. And so it was, when we looked at those, we saw that some people talked about the populations that their theory and model had been tested on, how they had tested their work internationally, the concepts that lent themselves to applications across many populations. So be a critical consumer around the theories and models that you use and how well they apply to the clients that you serve. All right, now let's turn the page here to client identities. So I've mentioned one of the fundamentals of equity, diversity, and inclusion practices is that not everybody has the same access to education and employment. And it's because not all identities are treated equally. So I think it's important to be willing to explore with clients what identities or what aspects of their background or who they are important for them, to hear how they've been treated by other people, to not assume that everything's about equity, diversity, and inclusion, but to ask clients what might be relevant to them. When they're uncomfortable or when we're uncomfortable, notice that in conversations. Formal and informal exploration through listening, bringing together ideas, or directly asking people about their experiences of when they felt included, or times in their lives where they have experienced privilege and oppression, and how those experiences might or might not relate to their current issues for which they're pursuing. In other words, you often have to be the one to ask some of those hard questions. They matter for the working alliance because there's a power difference when clients come to see us, that we have to be willing to ask clients questions and in language that is not our language of professions, but to really try to understand what their experiences are. And there might be concerns about seeing people, confidentiality, whose agenda is this, what's the reasons they're coming, thinking about the goals and processes, really trying to explore contextual influences, any safety conditions, recognizing, taking a strength-based approach with our clients, being willing to educate legal rights, workplace rights, and to share those successes. Now, I've talked about some of the systemic barriers that affect many people, and I think it is important to ask people about their experience and create a safe place for that discussion to have, because you might be the only person who's ever inquired, even though that has been a big part of their experience. So being willing to initiate, but also not assume. So you're checking it out, you're testing. Honoring diverse worldviews. Not everybody has the same notion about the value of work, the pressures they feel from family, from community, customizing career support, asking about workplace culture and bias. Sometimes people feel they're the only one experiencing something, and having a trusted environment for them to talk about some of their challenges is really important. To help people develop skills and strategies to influence their workplace conditions, for negotiating salaries, for making changes that might make their relationship to the world of work stronger. Part of the thing that what we do really well is provide resources to people. If we have good access to resources, we have better resources for our clients. Now, practice context of organizations, I'll spend a couple of minutes on this point, starts with leadership. And I made the point earlier that organizations who can say they have a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but do they practice this? And it starts with leadership. Do leaders support this? Do they give time? Do they give resources? Do they model what it is that they would like to see within organizations? This is really important. What is the strategic focus of the organization? So while we've talked about how individuals and individual career practitioners can advance strategies, what's the strategic focus of the organization? As individuals, we might inform and contribute and offer, but what is it the organization is aiming for, and how can we make a contribution? I use just a straightforward, simple question. When we're renewing policies and practices in my organization or the area that I have some leadership, and I ask this question, okay, who is included by this policy change and who might be excluded? Okay, so something that we might think is going to open up access actually might be harmful to other members of our community. So I think you always have to have that lens, the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion as you're making organizational change. To whom is this service improvement aimed? And is it going to make our clients' lives better? Is it going to make our lives better? What might be the unintended consequences of such changes? So I mentioned funding conditions might often be shaping very much what we do, how many sessions we are able to see clients, whether or not funding is connected to our work in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are all important things to discuss. Our program planning and evaluation. I raise this point because it's important to look at how well our programs are serving people in our communities, and how some changes or accommodations, how things might be adapted to open access, and how can we evaluate and provide evidence. So, everybody benefits from an inclusive environment. The same benefits that you talked about for clients can be benefits for us in working in an environment where we feel included, and bring on board staff who maybe have a fuller representative of the community. So I've made this point about keeping EDI on the agenda, and I want to share with you. I've had quite a bit of backlash from colleagues. Some colleagues have had wonderful supporters, but some colleagues who have questioned some of the work that I have done, saying questions like, oh, are you still doing that? As if it's out of date, or saying, oh, well, we did that. It feels like a bit of a checklist approach. So equity and diversity inclusion isn't a one-off thing. It's a commitment. It's a way of being as professionals. It's a way of creating an inclusive environment that's ongoing. It's a place of building on the work that we're doing over time. So I share those examples because it's going to be important to make this not a time certain kind of initiative, but rather keeping this as a priority amongst many other priorities in your work. And please share outcomes and processes. We can learn together. All right, I just want to go over a few points about interprofessional strategies. This means thinking about who is on your team, because doing advocacy together is stronger. And that means learning with and from other professionals. That can be other career development practitioners, but it can also be professionals from different backgrounds, teachers, medical professionals, people who are working in policy, who have together can inform policies, programs, and practices. I'm not a DEI specialist, but one of the things I'd like to do is connect with and attend sessions offered by organizational specialists in diversity, equity, inclusion, who have spent really a focused career in that, because I'm able to learn and bring strategies to our organization. So expand your network, but also think about who's in your network. Do you have a place for consumer voices? That might be previous service users, where they might give you some input around practices. Who are you connected with in the community? At earlier times in my practice, I just realized I did not know enough about newcomer serving agencies. So I just went and knocked on their doors and said, can you tell me a little bit about the programs and services that you offer? And that led to, multi-year commitments where we would just support each other. I could call them when I had a question. They could call me when they had a question, or we'd have a meeting. Bringing in employers. So interprofessional collaboration allows you to build your resources and also referral base. These are points that apply in contemporary career development practice. But when you put an EDI lens on it, it's building up your collaborations in ways that support an EDI focus. Now, just a few points about professional associations. So we're here because CICC has sponsored this wonderful series on EDI. Thank you very much. A couple of years ago, when I presented another webinar for CICC, one of the things I did was I took a look at standards of practice and codes of ethics from several different countries, because I wanted to see what those standards of practice and codes of ethics had to say about diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. I want to show you an example. So I've pulled a couple of things from the professional standards for Australian career development practitioners. And this is just one section. And I just underlined some of the key ways that concepts related to diversity, equity, inclusion are included in standards of practice. And it's very strong. I was involved in the field testing of the diversity competencies for the original standards and guidelines career development practice in Canada. So that was great to strengthen those. I was involved in the revision of the ethical standards for the International Association for Educational and Vocational Guidance, because we didn't feel we had a strong enough clauses related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. So these are just some examples. Now, the other example I wanted to show you was from the ethical principles. This is from the Australian context. And when I look at the ethical principles related to diversity, it's really strong and impressive, because you can't miss the point that respect for diversity is core to our ethical practices. Now, I'm highlighting these because these are tools for you to go refer to in your own standards of practice, to think about, wow, what are we doing? How am I practicing this? What could I use to strengthen my practice? I did some work with the Guidance Association of Sweden and noticed what a strong commitment they made in their codes of ethics regarding human rights. So these are just some country examples, but go to your professional association statements to see what you've committed to as being a member, but also how you can use documents as a basis for setting strategic plans. So one of the things about professional associations is that they're made of a collection of people, and we can have a stronger voice in advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion through our collective voices. So I encourage you to work through your professional associations for strategy development. What are the issues that they are taking on? What are the issues we can take on collectively that could make a difference for a larger number of community members or client groups. This is all part of strategic planning. We have to name something in conjunction with the people who are affected by it and make a commitment to action over time. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of some remarks here. So I started this presentation with a point about defining what do you mean by diversity, equity, inclusion, or who you mean. So just, be cognizant of the language you're using, and you can use that as an entry to conversation. When people are talking about working with diverse clients, who are they really talking about? Because that has implications for how you set up your strategy. Think about the positive benefits. I really want to emphasize that point. Yes, there are multiple persistent barriers that affect people's access to education and their mobility through employment systems. But if we can continue to make a case, known as a business case, for the positive benefits of equity, diversity, inclusion, people are more likely to listen. Select issues that matter to your clients, matter to you, matter to your organization, matter to your professional association. You can do that through commitment to strategy development, through choosing, I'm doing something now I still want to develop, or there's something new that I want to focus on. I hope that you found some ideas today that might inform you with strategy development. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you to name something. Share and support each other with those ideas. We can bring together a lot of collective expertise. So I'm going to go back to that point. If we share and support, we can be strong, and we can be stronger together. All right. So one last poll coming up before we have a couple minutes for questions. Something that you noticed today, something that was new, something that you might want to continue or start. At the end of every presentation for the last 10 years on topics related to equity, diversity, and inclusion, or social justice, I have asked this question to the audience. What is one thing you could do, one thing you could commit? And it's like the graphic that I chose for this slide. On our own, or one thing on our own, doesn't seem like a lot, but when you string those actions together and collaborate with people, you end up with a lot of collective power. So what's your thing to advance DEI strategy? Please offer some suggestions on Mentimeter. Great. Find a mentor, using inclusive language, checking our biases, keep reflecting. Yeah, pause and listen. Their organization. Okay. Terrific. Okay. We have some great suggestions here coming up. And I will, again, circulate those through to CICC, and those can be sent out with your recording. Okay. All right. All right, we've got some terrific ideas coming through. Thanks very much. Ensure policies are implemented. Love that, because we can make change, but what happens to them? Okay. Thank you very much for offering those. I'm mindful of our time. I appreciate you being here today. I have just offered some resources if you're more interested in reflective practice. The first resource has some good suggestions about selecting theories and models. The second resource has a good section about reflection. The work on culture-infused career counseling is probably best found in the last 3 chapters that are listed on the slide today. So I think that that's where we are finishing up today. I'm mindful of time, David. Do we have time for a couple of questions?
We probably have, yeah. So we've probably got 5 minutes, so we can probably answer some questions. I think what's in the Q&A at the moment, I think one's a comment, two are some questions. So you should be able to see those.
Mhm.
Carol's made a comment whereas Sue and Fiona are asking some sort of specific questions. Can you see those, Nancy?
Yeah, I've just pulled those up. Okay. All right, first question. You've not covered areas such as the importance of looking at the specific needs of clients. How does your career choices relate to other areas, health, work in a structured way? Oh, okay. All right. All right, Carol, I'm hoping I understand your question. I think it's all about looking at the specific needs of our clients. And this is why I have really emphasized this point about customized practice and trying to not treating everyone the same. So if we spend time trying to listen and have a better understanding of our clients' context, we can tailor our practice accordingly. This is I really like your comment because it reminds us to treat people in a more holistic way, not just run them through targeted programs. Thank you. All right. I would prefer not to give names of specific organizations, Sue. Thank you, because I feel like that misses a lot. I don't know what country you're from, Sue. I would encourage you to connect with a council that offers diversity, equity, and inclusion kinds of services, because they will have a registrar of lots of different members, and that's a way to learn. So I don't mean to duck the, I don't want to duck the question, but I think that's a way I would prefer to go. Thank you. Any journal articles about the business model to advocate for systemic changes? Fiona, that question, I tend to go to a little different literature on this. I'll often go to literature, maybe not in career counseling, but more in organizational development or human resources. And you'll see quite a bit of work around organizational and making a case for diversity, equity, inclusion in those types of articles. My from the business model, my own writing has talked about this from an ethical point of view, and how important it is for us that advocacy for systemic and social change is at the core of what we do for career practice. So I do think that is supporting our business case for the work that we do. Thank you. All right. Thanks for lovely comments coming in from everyone.
You've done well, Nancy, to get through the questions, and I'll send you a copy of the chat as well afterwards. So anything you've not been able to see, you can go back and have a look at. I think just in wrapping up, I just want to say thank you, because I know how busy you are and you're very hard to lock into these sessions. So thank you for, first of all, making time to be part of the series, and also for taking the time to prepare for today. It is very much appreciated, and we love having you as part of our CICC family and being able to present to the profession. So thank you for that. Thank you to everyone that attended today. It's been great. As I said at the outset, this is the final of the four series, the four webinars in the series for this year. I think, Nancy identified sort of in our professional standards through our codes of ethics and in our core competencies, the richness that exists in our documents around diversity, equity, inclusion, and that's deliberate. And I think as an organisation, CICC has as its forefront of its mission, making sure that we are inclusive of all. And those inclusions in the professional standards didn't just happen to appear there. They were very deliberate in the writing of those standards. And I think that, in reviewing our standards on a regular basis with sort of our counterparts around the world, that, I think our standards do stack up very strongly in relation to diversity, equity, inclusion compared to others. So It's something as an organisation that we're very proud of, and we're also very proud of the work that career practitioners in Australia do in making sure that they are across this whole thing. And as Nancy was saying, it's important that we include this as part of our practice. So thanks for your participation today. If this was the first webinar that you attended and you missed some of the others, all of the whole series will actually be on our YouTube channel in April, so you'll be able to go back and have a look at those in April. But as always, this recording will come out on Friday. So for those of you that attended today, you'll get a copy on Friday. So thanks for your participation, Nancy. Again, thank you so much for making time. It's been wonderful. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy, if you're in Australia, enjoy your afternoon. And if you've joined us from other parts of the globe, whatever time zone you're in, thank you for being part of the series. So thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.